Chad Pinkerton. We're back for Facebook Live regarding the Vegas shooting. Tonight's topic will be the freight elevators and the security related to the elevators. I'm sure we'll also talk about this ammunition dealer, but first I want to kick it to Joey. Joey, set us off here.
Thank you, Chad. Yes, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. We are doing this live. So if you do have any questions, you can put it in the comments and we will try to cover it. Also, if you have some questions, you can always go to Chad Pinkerton, or you can email lasvegas@chadpinkerton.com and you can get your questions to us that way. If you've missed any of the topics that we've covered, we do have a lot of videos that we have up at MandalayBayVictims.com. You can look for our knowledge base and you can see any of the videos that we've covered and any of the topics that we've gone over. Chad, tonight I do want to talk about the service elevator and the ammunition supplier. Could you give us any sort of overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Sure, Joey. So the service elevators are obviously a problem in this case. What we're finding out is there was virtually no security during the days that led up to this shooting. This allowed Mr. Paddock to use those elevators to bring large numbers of suitcases up to his floor. Apparently, those suitcases were used to bring up a number of guns. We don't know what guns were in what suitcases, but we do know in the first days he brought up 7 large bags through the freight elevator with the help of the bellman. The problem is they didn't have security to check that. They didn't use wands to check the bag. They didn't use a check-in sheet to check people into the service elevators. They didn't have security at the service elevators. That's a big problem. But what did Mandalay Bay do after this event? Days after this event, or weeks after this event, an investigative reporter did something very interesting. A lawyer like me, I could never do this because it would be a violation of the ethical code if I was going to bring a lawsuit to sneak into Mandalay Bay and try to gather evidence. But investigative reporters can do this. She and her teammate went into the Mandalay Bay. They walked straight to the freight elevators. They went up and down the freight elevators a number of times during a number of different occasions. No security, no check-in, nobody checking bags. Folks, this is after this event. 58 people were dead. Hundreds are shot. More than that has injuries related to this catastrophe. And still, Mandalay Bay has nothing in place to protect people from getting in those freight elevators with guns or weapons and getting to a high elevated position. That's a real problem. They didn't have a procedure or a policy before. That's a huge problem. And then after, they still don't have a policy or procedure in place. How does that happen? That's a complete ignorance to safety. It's amazing this reporter could go in and do that after the fact. Imagine how easy it was for Paddock. Maybe he picked this hotel because it was so easy. He's been there many times before. He's gambled there many times before. Maybe he identified this as a weak link hotel that he could use to attack these victims. It's pretty sad. Anyways, all right, Joey, hit me off with some questions. I'll get to the arms ammo dealer as it comes, and let's talk about things.
Of course. I do want to talk about some of the security at the freight elevators. How do they determine who has access to the freight elevators?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple from what we know right now. They didn't determine. They didn't take any action to determine. They didn't identify this perpetrator before he used the freight elevators. He simply brought in his suitcases, put it on a luggage rack, asked a bellman to help him, took it to the freight elevators, and went up to the floor where he was going to do this crime. That's what he did. There was no identification process that I know of. I mean, we're not even in the discovery process. But what I'm learning is it was simply get your suitcases, go to the elevator, and go up. The lady that did this investigative reporting, she did the same thing, no security. You know what she did have? She had one of the help staff see her, wave at her, say hello to her, and then she just moseyed along her way, allowing her to use the freight elevator with no identification Didn't even ask for their purpose for being there. Didn't call security, nothing. They went up and down and up and down, just completely unnoticed after this event. Pretty tragic. What else, Joey?
Chad, do you have any knowledge if they keep a log of who is using the freight elevator?
Yeah, Joey, I think I just answered that, but we won't know of a log for quite some time. You know, we don't know if there was a log that just wasn't being used during the time period. We don't know if they somehow logged him in and out without him actually seeing something. We're going to find out in the discovery process whether they had that log. That would be pretty important, right? You need to know who's using those private freight elevators and what they're using it for. And you might want to take notice of how many bags they're going up and down with, but we won't really know that until the discovery process begins. But my guess is this: there was no log. I'm pretty certain that MGM and Mandalay Bay, as they've been sneaking out information that they think helps them in this case, would have snuck that out into the media. Have no doubt. MGM and Mandalay Bay are trying to use the media to their benefit. They're trying to feed information out there in the public to distract the public from what's really going on. This is a security breach. This is a failure to have policies and procedures to keep people safe at a venue. It's about nothing else. It's not about gun control or ammunition control or conspiracy theories. It's not about anything about that. It's simply about what MGM and Mandalay Bay failed to do at that hotel. That was to have proper security. It's what Live Nation and MGM failed to do at this venue. They failed to have policies and procedures to protect people from something like this or any other catastrophe. It's a real problem. All right, Joey.
Thank you for the answer to that question. If you have questions at home, I am keeping a watch on the chat. So if you want to drop one in there, I will try to cover it and we'll try to get to it. Chad, earlier you mentioned a bellman that might have helped the shooter. Is that confirmed? Was there a bellman that helped him with his bags?
Okay, so the police report came out, and the police report clearly identified that the bellman, I think 2 bellmen, helped with the bags. And they mainly helped on the first 2 days, is what I could glean from the police report. It's fairly vague. Police report probably got that information from statements from the bellman and the video that they took from the hotel. That's the likely source of this information. We don't know exactly how many bags, but what I could glean from the police report was it was about 7 bags that they helped Mr. Paddock with early on. 7 bags. He brought up 15 to 20 bags over a very short period of time. How did that go unnoticed? And how do you allow bellmen to help with bags that are obviously heavy and large, and a large number of them, without ever even thinking, let's check these, let's wand these, let's ask what the purpose are, let's do something later to check the room and see, why do we have 20 bags in one hotel room? It makes no sense. What else, Joey?
Chad, I'd like a little bit more information on the service elevator. Is the service elevator available to the public, or is that normally just reserved for employees?
Okay, well, obviously in this case, MGM and Mandalay Bay feels like it's okay to use the service elevator without any security and allow the public to use it. But Steve Wynn came out and said that's not what he does at his hotel. He doesn't allow his patrons to use the service elevator. And if there is a circumstance where they are going to use the service elevator, they are accompanied by security. That would be proper. You shouldn't use a service elevator, a private entrance for patrons, because of these very things. I mean, it's not just guns and ammunition and attacks like this. There could be a number of other dangerous activities that could occur by a person using a service elevator at their will. It could be a real problem. Other hotels have clearly identified this. Many hotels have said, no, the public can never use the service elevator. MGM and Mandalay Bay just simply ignored this and ignored it for years. Failed to recognize that this is a serious problem by simply not looking at their security protocols. All right, Joey, what's up? What else?
Thank you. So since the public generally doesn't have access to a service elevator, is it common for there to be security posted at these locations?
Well, what we're getting from the industry standard, what Joey's asking about is what does the industry generally do? And so I'm not a hotel owner. I certainly do not have direct experience with this, but what I do is I hire experts that understand security in hotels. What my experts are telling us and what I understand to be true is that generally hotels like this have security in place at freight elevators, have security measures to see who uses the security elevators, have documents that would show what is being brought up in the security elevators, has video that they watch the security, freight elevators regularly, all the time, 24 hours a day, knowing that this could be a danger. That's just not what happened here at Mandalay Bay.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, you can also ask it in the comments. We are doing this live, so as they come in, I will try to cover them. I do want to move on now to the ammo dealer. Will the person who supplied him with the ammunition, is he going to be held at fault at all in this lawsuit?
Okay, so we're talking about Mr. Hay. He has a business and he was selling ammunition. He has been charged and is going to have to defend himself criminally. But that doesn't mean that he was a co-conspirator. It simply means that the government believes he broke the law. He broke the law by selling this ammunition without a license. That's what he is accused of. They're not saying that he and Paddock had some relationship or he was involved with the perpetrator in planning this event. That's certainly not the accusation. He simply sold ammunition that he shouldn't have sold, and that's bad and it's wrong, and he'll be criminally prosecuted this. He just got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I mean, this was the wrong place, wrong time for Mr. Hay. He sold ammunition illegally to the wrong person, and he's going to be punished for that. But is he going to be a part of this lawsuit? Is he going to be a named defendant? No. I mean, this case is about security breach. It's about failure to provide securities and safety protocols at the venue. That's what this case is about. Don't get distracted from everything else. That's what MGM and Mandalay Bay want. They want you distracted. If you're looking at everything else, if you're looking at co-conspirators, you're looking at gun laws, you're looking at Mr. Hay, you're looking at the girlfriend, you're not looking at the issue. The issue that this jury will decide. Did Mandalay Bay MGM fail to provide proper security? Was the venue a safety hazard? Those are the real questions. We need to focus on those questions because that's the way we can bring about change. If we're going to try to make sure that this doesn't happen again, then we're going to have change. And change does not occur without focus. And that's what this lawsuit is going to do. We're going to be narrowly focused to the real issues at hand. All right, Joey, that was a little long-winded. Apologize. What else?
It was fine. So the person who supplied the ammunition, Stephen Paddock, there must have been a lot to fill up 15 to 24 bags. Wouldn't the supplier question why he is acquiring so much ammunition? Okay,
so let's answer that question. What I believe, and I'm not certain on the facts here, but I think this is what I read, that Mr. Haig sold this perpetrator about 700 rounds. 700 rounds is not even close to what he had up in the room. At the time, he had, 4,000 to 6,000 rounds in the room, so it was a very small percentage of the rounds. So it wasn't like he bought all of the rounds from Mr. Haig. What he really bought was these tracer bullets so he could see the bullets as they went through the night sky. So that allows somebody in darkness to target their aim. What we do know is not very many, if any of those bullets were used. We're going to find out down the road whether any of the bullets were used from Mr. Haig, but what we believe right now is none or a very small amount of the bullets were used. But we're going to find out, and I'm saying that based on very minimal information. So I want to really hold pause on that, but we'll find out on that issue down the line. What else, Joey? Did I answer your question, Joey?
Yes, I believe you did.
Okay.
And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Chad, you can put it in the comments. We are live here, so we will try to cover them as they come up. Chad, was the person who supplied the ammunition, was he located in Las Vegas?
Well, you know what? I don't know exactly where he was located. He was in Nevada for sure. I don't know where his business was exactly. I think the communications between Mr. Paddock and Mr. Haig were initially over the over email traffic. There was some traffic about what he was talking about. We've seen the cryptic emails between the two. Certainly, Mr. Haig's made a comment that he wasn't suspicious of the perpetrator when he bought the bullets, which, I mean, the truth is, an ammo dealer sells a lot of bullets. I don't know why he would be particularly suspicious when somebody buys rounds, 700 rounds, not a terribly large amount of rounds. And I don't know why he would be surprised. He probably should be getting those calls a lot during the day. I don't know what his business was like, but I would assume that that's what he was in the business of doing, and it wouldn't shock him that somebody wanted to buy his rounds. What else, Joey?
Yeah, thank you. There's been some rumor that the person who did sell the rounds, that he wasn't licensed. Is this true at all? Do you have any information about that?
So I can't really confirm that at this time, Joey, but what I can tell you is what the news says. The news says he was not licensed to sell this particular round. And if he sold a round of ammunition that he wasn't licensed to do, that's a violation of federal and state statutes. And if he did that, then that's why he would be charged with the crime. And he's going to have to defend himself. The prosecution will have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and he'll have an opportunity in court with his lawyer to defend himself. He hasn't made any comments since his initial comments, so I think this is something that we're going to have to just wait and see what develops over time.
Thank you. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can put them in the comments. We are live here, so I will try to cover them as they come up. Chad, I do want to talk to you a little bit more about the service elevator. How would they determine who gets access to it? Like, is it amount of bags that someone has? Is it maybe reserved for a handicapped patron of the hotel? How would they make that determination?
Yes. Joey, I don't have the answer to how Mandalay Bay or MGM would make that determination. What we know now, based on the information we have, they didn't have any rules or regulation about who gets to use the freight elevator. But let's just use some common sense. Usually the patrons that spend a lot of money and live on and stay on the upper floors get special treatment in places like MGM and Mandalay Bay. We always have the high roller issue. If you gamble a lot, hopefully at a hotel like this, they want you to lose a lot, so they give you special privileges. There has been some suggestion that this perpetrator had special privileges, and that's why he in particular had access to the service elevator.
Thank you. I want to go over to one of the questions that's been put in the comments here. If you'd like to put in a comment and you're watching, feel free to do that. We will try to cover it. Lori is asking, when do you believe that the police and the FBI will release the final report? Because so far we have only seen preliminary reports.
Yeah, so Lori, thanks for the question. Sorry I don't have a direct answer for you, but the truth is I've handled cases where the prosecutors, the federal government, the state government, the local authorities have been involved doing investigations, and they take a very long time. This is going to be a prolonged investigation. It's going to be months and months before any report is filed that is a final report. I wouldn't even doubt if this goes into 2019 before we actually have a final investigation report. I handled the West explosion here in Texas. 14 firemen lost their lives. There was the FBI and the ATF that did investigations on that. That took more than 3.5 years to even give the preliminary report, and they didn't ever issue a final report to my knowledge. I was out of the case at some point, but I don't even know of a final report. So this does take time. Don't expect them to rush it. I will say local authorities tend to be a little faster than the state and federal governments. We'll just have to see, but it's going to be time. It's not a matter of days or weeks. It's a matter of months or even up to a year.
Thank you. To go back to the comments here, Dawn is asking, do you have any of the autopsy reports on the victims or anything on Paddock's brain?
Okay, so nothing on Paddock has been released as far as the autopsy reports. I saw last week that the local authorities were going to release the autopsy reports for the 58 victims. I have not looked at those. I have not intentionally looked at those, and I don't even know if they've actually been released. Personally, I think that's just wrong, right? These people lost their lives, and they have family and loved ones, and certainly those autopsy reports are private, and it just pulls the scab off a wound. So I would be against any of those things being released to the public in a manner like this. I have not even looked back to see if they were released, and I can tell you if they are released, I'm not going to look. I just think it's inappropriate. But to direct my answer back to you, Don, about his brain and doing the autopsy on that and seeing what the findings are, that's going to be a very interesting thing. We need to see if he had some mental illness and if there are any, if there's any evidence from his brain matter that would show that. That would be an interesting fact in this case, at least to know maybe the motive of this killer. But in my lawsuit, the civil lawsuit, it's not really about Paddock and his brain or what was wrong with his brain. We know something was wrong with his brain, but what we really want to know was what was wrong with MGM and Mandalay Bay and Live Nation and CSC. What was wrong with their collective brains to allow something like this to happen? Okay, thank you. What else?
Thank you. And I think that is all the time we're going to have for tonight. If I didn't cover your question, you can send it to lasvegas@chadpinkerton.com, and we will continue to answer it from there. Also, some of these questions are referring to other topics that we've covered in previous videos. So if you'd like answer to some questions that we've covered before, you can go to mandalaybayvictims.com, look for our knowledge base, and you can see all the other topics that we have covered, any of the other posts that we have put out there for the public to view. Some of those do include video of Paddock and why it hasn't been released, and about the reports that are coming out for the public. Chad, do you have any final thoughts for the evening?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Look forward to seeing you next week. Next week, we're going to talk about the conspiracy theories. Here we go. We're going to open it up. Should be a fun one. See you next week.